take me through how you came to be here at this office and what you're seeking Sal for.
Yeah, for sure. So in January of 22, I started feeling like I had a toothache in the front incisor tooth. And I was just putting it off, right? And then I bit down into a sandwich one day and I could just feel the pain just escalate. Almost like it was getting worse and worse and worse. Actually ended up on the floor and was screaming in pain, and my son, who's 20 years old, kind of grabbed me and picked me up, and we had a good laugh, like, what was that about? So I went and saw the dentist, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta, so I went and saw the dentist there, and he said, I think you got TMJ, like, you know, through COVID we've seen a lot of people grinding their teeth, and you should go home and massage it and take care of it. So I did that. But I actually got COVID, and so it was getting worse, but I didn't want to go to the dentist when I had COVID, so I was waiting. And then I was on a Teams video call for my company, and all of a sudden this massive pain erupted and ended up on the floor in like a fetal position in a cold sweat due to the pain that lasted about 2 minutes or so. My wife rushed me right back to the dentist and, you know, got me in right away to look at it, and he said, look, I think you got trigeminal neuralgia. I'm going to send you to a dentist specialist just to confirm that. And as that's all happening, I'm deteriorating. Every day is kind of getting worse and more pain. And I went to see the specialist. He's like, yeah, you've got TN. And he started giving me a trileptal, 150 in the morning, 150 at night. And went home, and he goes, get connected to your family doctor and, you know, get into the system. I'm in Canada, so you got to kind of work your way through the system. But things just kept deteriorating even further, and to the point where, you know, I couldn't really eat, and I was drinking through a straw. And meanwhile, we're running up to emergency at the hospital and trying to deal with pain. And, you know, they're giving me some pain medicine and then sending me home. Giving me some pain medicine, sending me home. Finally, you know, I have a massive kind of seizure is the only way to describe it, and it lasted maybe 20, 25 minutes, and my wife called emergency. They sent an ambulance down. They put me full of fentanyl, which brought the pain down, and took me back to the hospital. They got me finally connected to a neurologist, and he says, look, we're going to have to admit you're in acute pain, you can't even drink water. And I was in there for 8 days. And they just kept upping my trileptal, and I kind of left the hospital at, I think, about 1,200, and was manageable. You know, they said, hey, you can eat, you can drink, and went home. And then, you know, I'm a pretty active person, and so I started researching, like, how am I going to deal with this? I wasn't able to work. I wasn't really still able to eat all that well. I work in technology. I need to talk, right? Like all these critical things. And so I use the internet a lot, and I can't remember exactly what my Google search was, but I got connected to your videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about something specific. When you said a seizure effect, was it like a grand mal whole body, or was it located to one specific area?
It felt like somebody had taken like electric shock into my brain, right? That's the only way I can describe it. And that electrical shock kept building. And you're just in so much pain that you don't really have control over your body, that you just kind of ended up really like in a fetal position, and like just shaking, you know. And you know, obviously, you know, when you're at seizure, like my wife's trying to talk to me and how can I help, but there's like, you can't do anything. You just gotta kind of let it ride out, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a formal diagnosis of trigeminal neuralgia then?
Yeah, idiopathic. I did an MRI, and I have it in my lower right side, and the MRI showed, you know, the issue in my left side. And so the doctor's like, you're idiopathic, but we'll take a further look. And they've sent it off to a neurology surgeon to kind of get a third opinion, but right now it's idiopathic, yeah.
So pain never crosses midline,
no,
by the way.
It's been pretty much, it's definitely all on the right side. The pain has changed a bit, you know, like it was this front tooth that felt almost like it was too tight and the muscle was ripping, like when I'd have a seizure. And now it's kind of moved more back into the jaw. And I would say in the last few weeks, You know, my tongue feels, it's like it's on fire a lot. And then lots of pins and needles through the face.
Tingling, sure.
Yeah, but right now I'm on 1,500 of Trileptal a day. Yeah. I've talked to my neurologist, and he definitely wants to bring it down. He's like, I've never had anybody on this much Trileptal for TN, so he's like, I want to get you down. And he's like, as the pain is removed, he goes, I will reduce it with you.
Okay, that's fine.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and I know you come with a fair bit of knowledge of what we do here.
Yeah.
Because of the videos, and
Yeah.
you and I had a conversation on the phone before
Yeah.
you got on the plane.
Yeah.
What do you have any questions about what this procedure is, what it's not, what to expect?
No, I mean, we've had great conversations, and a huge thank you for putting the videos out. Like, one, it just gives you hope to see people working on this, but two, it was just so educational. And one of the things I highly respect is the fact that you do follow-ups, and it's some of those follows up 2-3 years out, so you just understand that this stays and then it sticks.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say, having done a lot of research and being in the forums, look at somebody said it really good last week, is that the TN group feels just like a lost, forgotten about tribe that no one's putting any energy or time in. So, these types of things that you're doing give us hope, and we should explore them, because there's not a lot of good solutions right now. That's what we need to be doing, And I think you might have said this in one of your videos, but going from less invasive to more invasive, to me, has been a really great strategy or mental model to use. And we started with diets, and we started with some other things, and we're just moving down that kind of road, and we don't want to do MVD until we have to, and we've seen some of the results. And I did have a really close friend that I lost to brain cancer, and I watched him advocate for his care through that whole thing, and to be empowered and to reach out and look for different options and put them on the table and understand kind of the impact to them and what it's going to mean for your quality of life. So to me, this is a really strong option, and we got our fingers crossed. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to get started. I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to tell your story, because
And I emailed around to DTR doctors or dentists in Canada, and nobody got back to me. I said, do you work with TN? And no, I don't. I got no response. So obviously, like anything new, you got to get the word out more and more, and just keep fighting through the barriers.
Yeah. That's what the videos do, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started.
Okay.
You just completed round 1 of the DTR therapy.
Yeah.
And I did tell you that your bite was going to feel different.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you a couple of questions about that.
Yeah.
Like, when you bring your teeth together, does it feel like it touches evenly across?
Yeah, 100%. It feels like it's closing right, which is maybe a hard thing to describe, but especially with TN, it's sometimes hard to find your bite, but it just feels like, oh, that's the correct way your mouth is supposed to close, right? Because you can feel your teeth lining up better. Yeah.
Right.
But the word that just keeps coming to me is like, it feels correct. It doesn't feel off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All teeth hit at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds right too. Yeah.
So, just curious, we didn't do this beforehand,
Yeah.
but you were saying something about shoulder. Do you notice anything in your neck or shoulders
Yeah,
as far as relaxation?
I've had lots of shoulder issues, and up into my neck it's felt tight and almost feels like I've had pain down my shoulder blade. I have zero of that right now. Zero of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost feels like something's been released to my face, right? Because it would feel, and even when you're working on it, I've previously felt tightness in the front of my muscles here, and they just feel like they kind of released as we were just doing this little session, you know? Yeah. So is there anything I should be watching for that, I might need to reach out to you if, like, something that, quote unquote, isn't right?
Well, we already talked about symptoms can spike.
Yeah.
You get worse before you get better.
Yeah.
So if, and I make sure that I tell patients that, because then it's like, oh yeah, he told me about this, rather than I need to call.
Yeah.
And then he tells you, oh no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. So, and as far as restrictions for what you can and can't do from a physical standpoint, none. Whatever you can handle, do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, what about eating?
Yeah.
Eat whatever you want.
Okay. Go for steak.
Do whatever.
Yeah.
My whole thing, and that's the interesting thing, where this is different, because a lot of docs will say, no, soft foods and liquids and all of that. And it's like, you can't stay on that forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to know what we accomplished.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're back. This is Monday.
Yeah.
You got your first treatment with DTR
Yeah.
on Thursday of last week. I just bring me through the weekend and what you experienced or didn't experience with your symptoms after having the therapy.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I had talked about after the treatment, my jaw felt like it was in the right spot finally, and the bite felt like it was right. And then, went home and you could feel things changing, I guess is a way to describe it, like new muscles opening up. And, the analogy I've used with people, like if you had broken your leg and somehow figured how to walk with a broken leg, and then you got connected to a doctor was like, no, I can actually fix your leg, and this is how you're supposed to walk. And there's some tenderness, but you can feel all the right muscles being enacted. And the pain's been coming down all weekend, and I feel like the electrical shock has almost been unplugged. When I shaved this morning, there was some tenderness, but it wasn't like a jolt of tenderness. When I chewed a few times, I felt some tenderness, but not like that electrical tenderness. Yeah. Almost just like a quote-unquote normal pain, like something that may be strained. Sure. And just feel really confident that, as this heals, it's going to go and dissipate and go away. So, fingers crossed.
You mentioned something about seizures or spasms. Yeah. What was that?
When I ended up in the hospital, I would have these major pain seizures, and they would last for 2 minutes or so, and it felt like somebody had taken an electric kind of shock and just put it into your brain, and that feels almost unplugged now, right? And so that electrical feeling of the pain is gone, and it almost feels like just a soreness, right? Which is kind of like quote unquote normal pain, not freaky, like not freaking you out kind of pain. Not that scary pain where you're kind of like, oh my God, here we go, So.
Well, and tenderness from the muscle.
Yeah.
It's been overworked. Yeah. Now gets opportunity.
Yeah.
To kind of theoretically put down the weight.
Yeah.
And relax.
Yeah. And I felt in my gut that this has been muscular, and it just feels. I do a lot of yoga. I work out a lot, and you can just kind of feel it as like a sore muscle now.
Anything else? What about eating? How did you eat? How did you sleep?
Yeah, like eating, we left from the first treatment and we went and ate right away, and my muscles got tired and, I stopped eating. But that's all been fine through the weekend. And, I could feel like muscles really opening up in here, and now they feel just fine, And, the thing I would add is, how devastating this has been. The first week of March in that hospital, I thought my life was over. As somebody who's super active and, talking, I'm a leader in a tech company, so talking is my work. And I thought all those things had ended, and I thought I was going to be a burden on my family. And I fought out of that, and but there was no end in sight. This was kind of be the diagnosis for the rest of my life. And so to be here, feeling that we actually have a solution, and fingers crossed we're going to get to the end of this, and to have hope, it's just an incredible spot to be.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of that,
Yes.
share that experience with you.
We got to get the word out more. You know?
Well, even then, there's only, you know, a bricklayer can only lay so many bricks
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
day, right?
Yeah.
So,
but we got to convince more people to lay bricks here, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I would add, you know, there's a lot to the fact that I know dentists sometimes are not liked, or, you know, here's a massive opportunity to save people's lives. And it was worse than a death sentence. I prayed to die when I was in that much pain. I didn't want to live. Like, you know, there's that Turkish proverb of, if you think you want to die, throw yourself in the middle of the ocean and see how hard you would swim. In that hospital bed, I would not have swam at all. And for this opportunity to actually, you know, get people out of this situation and save lives, this is a huge opportunity to do really impactful work. And I would say that to, you know, dentists out there, that they absolutely are going to change people's lives. You know.
Wow, that I appreciate.
And the other thing I would add is, I know it's extremely hard, you know, when you kind of get yourself to some plateau. When I got out of the hospital and, you know, Trileptal and, you know, was kind of managing life, that you just do not want to take any risk to be worse, right? And it's very hard and it's very scary. And even talking with my wife of like, we can't go backwards. But you have to, quote unquote, risk to get a reward. And I'd encourage people, and you and I talked about it, is why not go from, you know, less invasive to more invasive, and to me this is why it makes sense, you know.
Well, there's two things there. You were talking about the length of time it takes to get the profession on board, and
Yeah.
you know, you know, I was watching Discovery this weekend, and they were talking about various plagues.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of a morbid thing, but you know, the medieval times and whatnot. I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah.
And they were talking about baby birth plague.
Mm.
And so they're like, well, I'd never heard of this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what is this? Well, what they had was they had so many women dying in childbirth.
Mm.
And the doctors didn't know what was going on, and they're trying to figure this out. And so what they would do is in the morning, they would do autopsies on these women who had passed in childbirth. And then in the afternoon, they would go right over and start delivering babies. Nobody was washing their hands.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one guy, and I can't remember his name, it's a name we've all heard.
Yes,
yeah. He's like, you idiots, why don't you just wash your hands, you know, before you go in, you know, after delivering a goat, you go deliver a baby, you need to wash your hands. It only took them 30 years to realize that he was right. And so now we start sterilizing everything, right?
Yes.
And there's a higher standard of care. But medicine and dentistry have to stumble around in the dark and rediscover itself and say, oh wow, this is not a new idea. Look, there's all this literature that these people before us discovered. The second frustration, I think, for patients is when you go into a doctor's office and you're looking for an answer. You say, hey, I've been diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia. The doctor that's there generally accepts that diagnosis and says, okay, there's no need to repeat everything that he's repeated. Diagnosis is good. Whereas here, the difference is if a patient comes in and says, hey, I've been diagnosed with X, Y, or Z, I want to see if the bite has a relation to what I'm like, okay, well look, before we do that, let's actually make sure you have a problem. Let's put you on the machine and make sure that bite force anomalies are taken care of. Or what are your disclusion times? And if they're fast, man, I can tell you before we even start this, I'm not the answer. Right? But if they're wrong, at the very minimum, all that's going to happen is, well, you're going to get your bite dialed in, and you might not need dentistry in the future as much because you're not as likely to break a tooth and need a crown because something's been overloaded for 15, 20 years and no one's ever known it, right? Because what we commonly see in dentistry is somebody will come in and say, oh, I was eating a piece of cheese and my tooth fell apart. And it's like, well, it wasn't the cheese, it was the fact that that tooth's been overloaded for so long. So I think that's where this office kind of stands out from a lot of others. Is the patient gets a voice. The patient, if the patient says, "Hey, I want you to fix my bite," maybe it helps me, and maybe it doesn't. And what happens after you do this for a decade, right, is you start to see correlations.
Of course.
And you're like, hey, I don't think this disease is really what we think it is. And so when I went back, and I don't know if we talked about this in the first video or not, but when I went back and looked at, you know, some of the original trigeminal neuralgia literature, from Dandy to Janetta to all these guys, the correlation was 40 to 50% at best. The problem we have is we're treating 100% of the patients like that small correlation. And it wouldn't it wouldn't hold water by today's standard. 40, 50% correlation is no correlation. It's a flip of a coin.
And if you, like, I've been in the forums and, you know, the TN forums, and it shows that with all these people, you know, different results and the struggles inside there. And like I said, you know, I work in tech. I'm looking at data right now, and we work obviously with a lot of data in tech, and we've seen, quote unquote, these assumptions or these things that we thought about the world are being changed by actually looking at data. And so being open and being rational, and you know, modern medicine's been incredibly powerful, and there's lots of obviously incredible powerful stories, but to me, you got to follow the data, and I'm looking at it right now, and it's like it's just A to B equals C as we follow this data. So advocating for yourself and getting proof with data, to me, makes a lot of sense in TN, because it just seems like there is not a lot of good answers outside of this. You know,
you glad you did it?
100% glad I did this. Right. Like I said, it has given me so much hope, and in such a good spot right now. And because I've been smiling and laughing, it does not show you the depression and the dark hole I was in March. Yeah, and I would say the other thing is the hopelessness inside of TN, because, like I said, it feels like it's a sentence worse than death, because you're going to live in this condition. Somebody described it really well. They said it's basically like living in your house with an assailant that can jump out at any time and literally beat the shit out of you, and you can't do anything. And so that edginess of, like, you know, how's today going to go? Did I do something wrong? Am I going to have massive pain? Oh, it's coming on. I better not go see my friends. All that type of thing. It's just such a struggle and a mental game. And there's just not a lot of good answers. So to me, that weight on you can be lifted, and I feel it's being lifted right here, right now. So it just puts you in such a better spot, you know.
Well, we're not done.
Yeah, we got work to do, but so, we're feeling really good. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll take it, but let's really fast response, which is what makes DTR so fun as a provider. But you're probably still going to oscillate a bit.
Yeah.
Know that.
Yeah.
And we're gonna follow up with you, you know, just as we go forward. So, Kevin, welcome back.
Yeah.
This is your second visit to us?
Well, I stayed for the week, so I kind of had to, right? I had the first one, and then I came back after the weekend.
Okay,
so maybe technically third.
Third total visit,
yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just tell me what you've noticed, you know, since.
Yeah, well, when I left after that second treatment, I felt like pretty much 100%. And I could feel like my neck muscles opening up and just things changing.
Sure.
I think you warned me, like, just super tired from the neurology changing, like really tired, like talking to people, falling asleep tired. And then for that first 4 days, I almost felt like I was perfectly healed. And then I got a really deep, almost like bone bruise, if you ever had it in sports, right? Where just in my jawbone, it just felt so tight. And I wasn't having electrical shocks, but it just really kind of freaked me out. I almost called you because I was like, this is just so tight. And then that just started loosening up. And then would have like the odd electrical shock, just like one big one during the day. Like I'd start, like almost the first time I would eat, it was just one big electrical shock. And then it would go away. And then basically every 2 or 3 days, the pain was just changing. And I could feel my face muscles changing. And where it got to, like, I've now 8 or 9 days without any electrical shocks, and quality of life is really good. I had a hot spot here, that's all gone, and I shave and I brush my teeth, and I don't even think about it anymore. But the one thing is, kind of by the afternoon, I feel just a tightness under my cheekbone, right? And it kind of comes down into here a bit. But then it goes away eventually. I don't know if I'm just talking too much during the day or something like that. But overall, just really feel like I'm progressing. It's just been a little bit ups and downs, but really strong progression, and like the quality of life is really strong. So
going back to, you were saying you were able to brush your teeth and shave and do all of those things, not worry about it too much and eat.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that the triggers that were once there are not currently there now?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're not done.
That's right. We've got some work to do yet. Yeah.
Got some more work to do, and time is our friend. So one of the things that I had to remind a patient was, just because it goes slowly doesn't mean it's not working. And now you're having an incredibly fast response, but generally that happens up at the front.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's going to change now is the amount of improvement is going to slow down considerably. You might plateau, almost like weight loss, where you stay at one level for 3-4 weeks, and then all of a sudden you get another step.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but extremely livable for me right now, right? Like, even if I was going slow, I'm working full time, I'm eating, right? Like, all those things are back in my life. So, just huge advantage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you heard your wife come with you this time.
No, I was down on business, so I flew over from Denver on my own.
Okay.
And that's the other thing. It's been like, when you go through the first treatment, we realize how simple and straightforward it was, and didn't leave here in extreme pain, right? So I'm comfortable just to come by myself and see you and go back on a plane.
There's about 50 different reasons why you can have oral facial pain.
Yeah.
This is just one.
Yeah.
It happens to be the major one.
Yeah.
That everybody's overlooking, but thank God you didn't have to go through any surgeries.
When you're on the online forums, it's very apparent that there's a lot of people in so various different situations that there must be a lot of different things going on, even though they've been diagnosed with TN. Right?
Well,
it's so huge. I can tell you, like, I had never heard of trigeminal neuralgia. You Google it, and it's just so depressing, right? Suicide disease, no cure, right? Like, then you get in the forums and you see all these people that have lost hope. It's a really dark place, and so to have this treatment and these results, I mean, it's just massive.
Well, I used to spend quite a bit of time in the forums years ago, and I'm coming from a standpoint of, like, I didn't think anybody would end up traveling. For me, it wasn't about that.
Yeah.
But we do have doctors that are interested in the technology for other reasons.
Yeah.
And so you try to give hope to patients and say, look, don't get cut on. Maybe try this first. I guess it comes across as maybe trolling for patients.
Yeah.
And, like, I got a guy in Canada who could probably set you up, or I got a guy in India who could probably help you out.
Yeah.
And then some will go down that route, and other people say, no, I want you to do it. But one of the most interesting things, when you post stuff on YouTube, you get all sorts of comments. And so some of them are really good, some of them are creative, some of them are funny, some of them are just, this is stupid, blah, 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 this is not what this is. That's kind of the point. But I just got this random guy, and it was on one of the Meniere's disease videos.
Yeah.
You saved my life, period.
Yeah.
I never saw the patient, never touched the patient, didn't treat the patient.
Yeah.
You saved my life. And I'm like,
yeah.
So he saw one of my boys over in India that we've trained up. So, I mean, you walk out, even if you had a really shit day, you walk out of the office and you're like, dude, we're helping people that I didn't even see or diagnose. That's cool.
Those videos are so powerful. That's how I found you, right? As I found the YouTube videos, like, those things to me, and I love the fact that you follow us all the way along, and you had people that were like 2 years after, right, and they're still doing great. Like, that to me was really important evidence that it wasn't like, oh, I felt good for a few weeks or a couple months.